I'm not ready to go yet, okay? I'm not ready. You gotta wait. I got shit to do. I'm in the middle of something, all right? Just hold on.
Watch your mouth or don't come in here.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, people, come on, we're adults here.
You know what? What is the point?
Yeah, we're adults here. I got a fucking Burger King fucking thing on my head. We're all fucking adults here, guys. People in my chat, 2 words. What are they? 2 words. Let me see the chat flood. Let me see the chat flood. 2 words. Okay, next caller. Please. Let's get into the meat and potatoes, which translate in American to dick and balls.
I got flip-flops. These are my flip-flops. Yeah, I really like my flip-flops because I can put them on. Because look, watch me put them on. I can put them on all by myself. Watch me put them on. Look, are you watching? Look, these are my flip-flops.
Thanksgiving Day. I remember it clearly. It was Thanksgiving Day. I was inserting myself in somebody else's fucking business as a cash grab, and you know.
This channel is harsh reality.
Karen Yak se jodió la sucia vida. Amen.
This is Jonathan Lee Riches. I have cheeseburgers. I'm gonna put cheese on them. I'm gonna make sure that I have my hamburgers because I'm a big boy now and I can make the hamburgers. My mom lets me use the stove now.
And I'm just like, wow, I like receipts, and they brought receipts. Like they had evidence to back up everything they said. And I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be another side to this, right? Like this can't. No, this is too fantastic.
Yeah, because you're not going to just jump to the conclusion that there's a conspiracy amongst cops to cover up a murder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, cops and just like soccer moms and shit. Like that's what made it even crazier. Like,
yeah, get it, Betty. Yeah,
did you have a close relationship with your mom?
Get it, Betty.
Oh, of course, I still do.
Yeah.
My older sister was kind of sad. She was more of the prissy girl, like going
That is
and
the
getting
best
hair
shit
done.
fucking
Shopping for the
ever.
dresses with mommy. I was the, tomboy that liked playing with the people.
Shout out to Cherry for just being easily the most faithful and loyal supporter that I've ever had. That someone could have that tenacity with loyalty. And I'm really blessed to have someone like Cherry be part of this channel and in my life. So it means a lot. And yes, I named him after Mr. T and Rocky. Say, woman. Say, woman. Say, woman. Since your old man ain't got no heart, why don't you come down to my apartment tonight and I'll show you a real man. Oh my God, I'm so in love with this little dude. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I love you guys very, 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 very much. And we will do this again very soon, my friends. Oh, say bye. Say bye. Oh, I love you too. Give me a kiss. Oh, I love you. Bye, guys. Woo! Good morning, people. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So today we have a Sandra Birchmore hearing in regards to Robert Devine. Okay. Now, I wanted to log on a little early. I'm gonna play this little video here so people who aren't familiar with Sandra Birchmore can familiarize themselves just a little bit at least. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play this. I've got the Zoom in the background, so we will be watching the hearing when it comes on live. But I want to go ahead and play this.
Suicide or murder? That's the question in the case of 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore, whose death 3 years ago was found to be self-inflicted. But now, a world-renowned forensic pathologist says her cause of death was homicide.
There's just certain people in the medical legal community, when their name is mentioned, people are going to sit up and take notice, and Dr. Bodden is certainly one of those.
He says the facts in the case just don't add up.
That is an atypical injury that you have in a hanging. That means it does not occur. You have to have sufficient amount of velocity in order to make that bone fracture. And that's what we're looking at here.
But all that is just the beginning.
Feels like a certain level of trust was betrayed, and she was taken advantage of.
There's also allegations that Birchmore was groomed and sexually assaulted by 3 police officers, starting when she was just 13. At the time of her death, she was pregnant, allegedly by one of those officers.
She started on her journey. She was fascinated by police officers. You would expect for that young girl to be protected and shielded in this environment.
All this begs the question, could criminal charges soon be filed?
I think that merely his presence in this case is going to compel the prosecutor, and that's where this needs to start.
It was February 4th,
It's
2021,
mind-blowing to me
when 23-year-old
that criminal
Sandra Birchmore
charges
was found
still
dead
haven't
inside
been
her Canton, Massachusetts apartment. At the time,
filed.
investigators said there were no signs of foul play. Medical examiners with the Massachusetts State Police soon ruled her death a suicide. For years, Birchmore supporters have been outspoken, saying she didn't end her own life. And now, a major figure in the criminal justice world agrees.
When Dr. Biden walks into a room or his name is mentioned in regards, people, they're going to sit up and take notice very quickly, particularly government officials that are involved in the case, because they know they don't want to tangle with him, because he'll come out and he will make his own diagnosis, and it carries a lot of weight.
That's forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan. We reached out to him about this case to review the findings of Dr. Michael Bodden. Dr. Bodden has a long history as a forensic pathologist, once serving as the chief medical examiner for New York City. He's also known for his investigations in the deaths of John Belushi, Jeffrey Epstein, and George Floyd. He also investigated the assassinations of both Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy, and testified in the O.J. Simpson trial. He was hired by Sandra Birchmore's family as part of a civil suit. In his recent findings, Dr. Bodden disagrees with her original cause of death. With that in mind, we reached out to Joseph Scott Morgan. So what we're really zeroing in on today is whether this was a homicide or a suicide, because originally a couple years ago when this happened, it was ruled a suicide. But now we have a major professional saying, I believe it was homicide. So how do you make the determination which manner of death it is?
Well, it all begins at the scene. And when you have an individual that dies at their own hand, and that's the way we define suicide. It's a very simple definition. It's death at one's own hand. There are certain distinct things that we look for in hangings. With suicides in our country, the number one cause of death with suicides are firearms. But in my estimation, and working cases as I have, the second are actually hangings, because you can make ligatures out of anything, nooses, that sort of thing. Even bed sheets, can be transformed into this. So when you first get to the scene, you want to be able to examine the body. If the body is still suspended when you arrive at the scene, you want to treat it very, very carefully as you begin to remove the body from its position. Very detailed notes have to be taken. Now, sometimes when you show up at scenes, the bodies have already been taken down, and that complicates cases many times. But the big question you have to ask, is this individual physically capable of having done this, of bringing about their own death?
Originally, Massachusetts State Police said there were no signs of physical abuse or a struggle in Birchmore's apartment. They said she killed herself by hanging. Dr. Bodden rejects those findings, though, writing, quote, Ms. Birchmore did not die of suicide hanging. The cause of Ms. Birchmore's death is strangulation, and the manner of death is homicide.
We hear about the term hardpoint a lot. That's come up in Gilgo. When you hear hardpoint, that means a location where you can secure a ligature or a noose that is going to be supportive of the body. And did it work? And so you have to consider all of that. And then there's certain anatomical features that we're going to be looking for as well. I think, and folks hearing this need to think about this term. And I actually love this term. It's called tinting feature. And it's not T-I-N-T-I-N-G, like the tint on a window. It's T-E-N-T-I-N-G, like a pup tint. And so when a noose is around a neck, it extends up under the jaw and goes up and forms an apex, kind of like, if people are familiar with their Greek alphabet, like lambda, like in this position, it comes to an apex and it's supported. So one of the features that we look for in suicidal hangings, you'll have a groove or furrow, as it's referred to, that goes up, comes to a point. Now, if you are absent that particular furrow, all right, and the person is suspended and there's no associated hemorrhage, then you need to look a little bit closer, and you need to see if the ligature is perhaps covering up something else. And let's just say that an individual was strangled with bare hands. This is called throttling. Um, this is going to leave hemorrhage in the neck, but it's going to run more parallel to the shoulder. So someone reaching out, squeezing and choking, and the hemorrhage will be diffuse, like fingers spread out. Okay, and you can actually see this. I've actually seen cases where you'll see what appear to be areas of hemorrhage that kind of look like fingers, where you can see fingers have been on it, and depending upon the amount of pressure that's applied.
According to Dr. Bodden, Birchmore would have lost consciousness within seconds after the ligature was put around her neck. He estimates she died within the next few minutes. According to Dr. Bodden, multiple clues left behind at the scene point toward a homicide. To start, the ligature around Birchmore's neck was tied to a doorknob. Dr. Bodden says that was done to, quote, give the appearance of a suicidal hanging.
Also, if a ligature has been used as a mode of homicide, there will be a furrow, but it'll run parallel to the shoulders like this. So what happens, and we're talking about staged suicides. You begin to think about staging. Some person might think, a perpetrator could think, that if I choke this person out and then hang them afterwards, we won't be able to figure it out.
Dr. Bodden also says Birchmore left behind no note and told others she was happy about her pregnancy. Additionally, a piece of the ligature was found in Birchmore's hair. Dr. Bodden says this, quote, occurs when there is resistance during homicidal strangulation. And then there's Birchmore's fractured hyoid bone. One of the things that Dr. Michael Bodden wrote in his report is a specific mention of the hyoid bone. This is something I wasn't super familiar with, but apparently it's different in a suicide versus homicide oftentimes when it's broken or fractured. Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. Hyoid is, we refer to it as, you'll hear forensic pathologists talk about it as a bird-like structure. And what that means is that it literally has little wings on it. And kind of a little side fact here that's fascinating, the hyoid bone is the only non-articulating bone in the body. That means it doesn't communicate with any other bony feature in the body. Its sole purpose is to literally anchor our tongue in the back of our throat. So if people at home can get an idea, if you can find out where this little cartilaginous member is with your trachea right here, the Adam's apple, and you go superior to it, it's going to vary depending upon the person, but let's just say an inch higher. That's where the hyoid actually rests, up in this area. So in order for this to be fractured, and Dr. Bodden points this out, it is most common in strangulations. As a matter of fact,
Wow.
really in our history, the only time you see a fractured hyoid relative to a hanging, most of the time, you have to go back in time to think about judicial hangings, where the noose is positioned up very, very high, and they fall from a height. And that means that they generate a certain amount of velocity. So that, and you hear about the idea of the neck snapping. And yeah, there's a dislocation in judicial hangings of, say, the C1 and C2, which is a critical area. But many times you would find fractured hyoids. But that doesn't happen with most hangings. People don't snap their necks when it's at their own hand. Most people asphyxiate. They don't fall from a significant height in order to generate that kind of velocity, in order to and the rope has to be, or ligature has to be positioned up like this. And how do you access that? Well, I don't want to put words into Dr. Mike's mouth here, but what he is pointing out is the fact that this hyoid was fractured by his view, and that in order to access that, you have to go so high up on the neck. Most of the time, a noose is not going to accomplish that task. It has to be high and constant pressure. And we've heard this, and Dr. Mike has spoken about this extensively relative to Epstein. That is an atypical injury that you have in a hanging. That means it does not occur. You have to have sufficient amount of velocity in order to make that bone fracture. And that's what we're looking at here with her. I think per Dr. Bodden, was there a sufficient amount of force that could have been generated, and was the noose positioned in such a way that it would have snapped? Probably unlikely in most of the cases that he's talking about. This homicidal asphyxiation with throttling high up on the neck, pressure, and a little bone fracture.
Dr. Bodden also notes a sexual assault kit was performed after Birchmore died, but was never tested. Morgan says that's normal protocol.
Anytime we have a female victim in my field, it's kind of common practice to go ahead and do a sexual assault kit when they die under odd or suspicious circumstances. It's better to have done it and not need it, right?
Right.
Because once the body is taken care of by funeral home in whatever manner, you've lost that opportunity.
Right.
So you have to do it at that moment in time.
We may not have the results of the sexual assault kit right now, but it's not too late.
We've had a horrible track record in this country with sexual assault kits where they've been shelved and that sort of thing. And my biggest concern, I think, if they did in fact do a sexual assault kit on her, which is going to be swabs and probably nail scrapings and nail clippings, and also hair sampling, what's the status of storage on that? Because you're talking about biological evidence that would be indwelling there, and it can be very fragile. So I would hope that that would be pushed forward. I'm encouraged by the fact that they actually did a kit. It's just that apparently it hasn't been analyzed. And there's certain features that we look for physically on the female body to see if there's evidence of sexual assault that had taken place. My suspicion is that they didn't see anything like that at that particular time, but they went ahead and did the kit.
Well, they didn't see
Let's
anything.
take a quick break from the
because they
story of
didn't
Sandra
even
Birchmore to
fucking
talk
look.
about something important: who you surround yourself with. That's where the sponsor of this story comes in, truthfinder.com. Here's how it works. Go on their website, truthfinder.com, and say, for instance, you have a new neighbor. Let's also run on one of who exactly she was officers. There are 3 that are accused of having sexually assaulted her, but apparently 1 is alleged to be the father of her baby. She was 3 months pregnant at the time she died. Now we're years past when she died. Is it too late to go back and figure out who exactly was the father?
No. In most cases, we do at autopsy what's referred to as a blood card. A blood card is you take a sampling from the victim, and it's placed onto literally a little card, and it's stowed at that point in time, and it would be kept on file. Now, when you have, I believe her number was 3 months. She was 3 months along. She was at probably the end of the first trimester. What type of samples did they take from the fetus? And that would be significant here as well. I don't know. I don't know how much data they could have retrieved from that fetus in order to facilitate that for genetic testing. But there would probably be some. The trick here is what samples did they take and how were they preserved?
Before she died, Birchmore told her friends the identity of her baby's father, former police officer Matthew Farwell. He's also believed to be the last person to see Birchmore alive. Security camera video from her apartment shows Birchmore arrive home at 5:46 p.m. on February 1st. 4 hours later, Matthew Farwell arrives at 9:27 p.m. the same day. He's seen entering through the main door and then going up the elevator. Just minutes later, at 9:56 p.m., he can be seen leaving. Farwell's wife gave birth to a baby boy the very next day, and Birchmore's body was found 2 days after that. Farwell later told Mass State Police troopers that he visited Birchmore that night to tell her things were over between them and that he was blocking her from all forms of communication. He denies any wrongdoing. But those aren't the only allegations against him. In fact, those date back to 2011 when Birchmore was just 13 years old. She was part of the Stoughton Police Department's Explorers program. It works to give kids an inside look at the criminal justice system and provide them mentoring from hands-on experience with officers. It was through this program that Birchmore got connected with Matthew Farwell, his twin brother William Farwell, and another officer, Robert Devine. The officers allegedly began grooming Birchmore when she was only 13. Matthew Farwell is accused of sexually assaulting Birchmore when she turned 15. At the time, he was 27. An investigation later found hundreds of explicit texts between he and Birchmore over the span of multiple years. Investigators also found explicit texts from his twin brother William Farwell sent to Birchmore as well. Both Devine and Matthew Farwell are accused of having sex with Birchmore in their patrol cars. All 3 men have denied these allegations, but resigned from the Stoughton Police Department in 2022.
The thing about when you're around police officers.
Now, Devine, he's who the hearing is going to be about today. Okay. And the thing you got to understand about Devine, and thank you, a big shout out to Suzanne Cleveland, who called in last night. This Devine character, he ends up becoming a lawyer, conveniently enough. So he leaves the Stoughton Police Department. He becomes an attorney, and he specializes in oh my God. All right. I already forgot the word, but we talked about it last night. And it's very significant. Torts. Thank you so much. It's very significant because it specializes in laws civil law where I don't want to say a third party, that sounds wrong. Where multiple people, I guess, are affected by the issue at hand. So he specializes in that type of law. Man, I know I sound like a fucking idiot right now. I'm sorry about that. But I don't know enough about the law. And this was news to me last night. Well, civil law, yes, but there's an area within civil law. I mean, I'm not that much of an idiot. Yes, I'm aware it's civil law, but there's an area within civil law that this tort that we were discussing yesterday, which was the first I ever heard of it. What's up, Scott? It's good to see you. Both Scotts, Scott McGinnis and Scott. It's good to see you guys. And it's great to see all of you guys here too, man. Buzzing for Truth, Little Irish Girl. Sorry if I don't call you out, Peggy. But yeah, man, it's great to see a lot of familiar handles in the chat.
They should be, kind of a standard that everybody looks up to, that esteems to want to be, in a perfect world. And unfortunately, when you look at these circumstances where you have allegedly a young woman, very young, as a matter of fact, when she started on her journey, she was fascinated by police officers. You would expect for that young girl to be protected and shielded in this environment. And
Right.
it really, the case itself, it feels like a certain level of trust was betrayed, and she was taken advantage of. From at least that's what we're reading and that's what we're hearing, and it's very sad, very very sad. And the fact that she essentially lost her life, whether or not it was at her hands or the hands of another, even kind of puts a
All right. So tort law is a branch of civil law that governs actions that cause harm to another party, which is exactly what this is. And so Suzanne and I were talking last night, and we were she was pointing out how convenient it was that, oh man, my neon's doing that thing again. Oh well. So she was saying that the tort, that it's very convenient considering the timing that this dude leaves the Stoughton Police Department. It's also interesting that when he first got demoted, he ends up in a position to where he can be directly involved in this explorers program. He becomes in charge of it, basically. And which it would be fair to speculate that he did this in a calculated fashion. He did this with the intent to groom victims.
a big exclamation point on the end of that statement, I think.
In 2022, Birchmore's family filed civil suit against the Farwells and Devine, writing they, quote, undertook to engage in inappropriate relationships with Birchmore, who was a minor when the sexual relationships were initiated, abusing her trust and adoration of law enforcement, which, through their inappropriate and undue influence, ultimately led her to allegedly take her own life. The same year, the Stoughton Police Department released the results of an internal investigation. According to Police Chief Donna McNamara, the report showed, quote, horrific injustices, including grooming and sexual abuse inflicted upon Sandra Birchmore at the hands of one rogue and corrupt former police officer, and additional inappropriate sexual relationships by other former police officers.
Well, that's something I think relative to the culture of the department that they would want to really do a deep dive on. And you have to go back a few years now. Who populated the staff at that particular time? Was she exposed to any kind of inappropriate behavior, or was she in contact with individuals that might have a history of this sort of thing? And I think the most chilling thing to me is that if this was facilitated for a 15-year-old to come and be at the station, my question is, are there any others? And that's what kind of really catches my eye here, because when a case like this comes out or bubbles up to the surface, it can go one of two ways. Many times, you'll have people that'll be pretenders that will say, "Yeah, this happened to me," and it turns out that it didn't happen because they're looking for a payday, maybe. But then you'll have that one small voice that's out there that says, "Finally, somebody else has brought notice to this. This is what happened to me. This is my story." So I would anticipate that you will probably hear potentially from other people. The trick is, as an investigator, how do you vet all of that and separate that out? Because there can be a lot of chatter in the news about that sort of thing. If another person
I'm
comes
not in
forward,
agreement.
I'd be looking for that.
I don't think that there would be a lot of victims that come forward. I mean, maybe, hopefully, but then do your due diligence and go through them, because that's your job.
Because generally, where you have one event like this, you're going to have more than one victim, and so that's going to be quite interesting to watch as this case develops.
When it comes to Dr. Bodden's recent findings, Chief McNamara says she was profoundly disturbed by the report, but notes that Birchmore died in Canton, meaning Stoughton police don't have jurisdiction to investigate. But Dr. Bodden's name alone could mean others investigate. Dr. Bodden is very well respected. He's highly decorated. He has participated in some of the most intense cases that we've seen across the country. So when his name is thrown around, people are taking a closer look for sure. So do you think it's possible then that charges could be brought in this case based on his recent findings?
Now, remember, it's a homicide. So even though it happened in Canton, Canton police don't have jurisdiction over the homicide. They don't handle homicides. They call in the Massachusetts State Police. That's what happened with Officer John O'Keefe, correct? So
I think that merely his presence in this case is going to compel the prosecutor, and that's where this needs to start, to do a deep dive with all of the parties involved in this, to look back in time. You know, let's just say that this turns out not to be a homicide. Just the implication of this in the law enforcement community, just this taint that would be upon their image, requires that this be thoroughly investigated, and that people, and it's open, that people know that their police are not corrupted in any way. And I think that the authorities running the police department would want that as well. They would invite that in. So, and that, again, going back to Dr. Bodden and his reputation, that's one of the times, or one of the things that causes that switch to be flipped when his name is mentioned, and you know that he's looking at this. There's just certain people in the medical legal community, when their name is mentioned, people are going to sit up and take notice. And Dr. Bodden is certainly one of those.
In the end, Morgan says Dr. Bodden's report holds some major weight in this case. When you were looking at the report that Dr. Bodden brought forward, are you thinking the same thing, that this could have been homicide rather than suicide based on the facts?
Well, yeah, I think that there's certainly enough
based on the
information
facts,
that it needs to be probed at this point in time. And then given all of the circumstantial,
like totally
the storm that this has created, it's something that's going to require a long look. But on the flip side of that, it's very important that all of this data that should have started at the scene, relative to her mental health history, and relative to any previous attempts, if there were any kind of vocalization that she had done about being depressed or anything, all of that has to be factored in. And given Dr. Bodden's expertise, I can only assume that has crossed his desk, and he's viewed all of this, and then take that circumstantial data, or the absence thereof, and factor that in with what he's physically seeing. This demands that the police take a deeper look at this.
Just this year, the Peace Officers and Training Commission added Matthew Farwell to a national database for law enforcement accountability. He's also barred from working as a cop in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Commission proceedings in the cases of...
All right.
Would be if his client were deposed in the civil case. At this stage, we don't believe that has been the case, and the deposition, in fact, hasn't been scheduled yet. Otherwise, the division just asked that Mr. Stowe provide any documents that he expects to introduce at the hearing on his client's behalf. But otherwise, we don't anticipate that there will be too much discovery overlap, other than what the division is already in possession of.
Okay. And is that, what's your assessment, Mr. Stowe?
Well, that's a correct statement. We did have a conversation. There is no deposition scheduled of Mr. Devine at this point. We had continued the matter because I think in part there was a 1 terabyte hard drive that was being provided to us. I talked with Amy Bratskier for the city of or the town of Stoughton, and she had to get an IT person to download the information from the drive that she received from the police department. The council are having that problem getting the information. Is curious, and I discussed this with Attorney Martinez, who's been very forthcoming about the information he has. And I've actually received more information through the post files than I have through the terabyte hard drive that I got from the town, from Stoughton itself. So we're still trying to get access to that. I don't think the 1 terabyte hard drive is going to add anything to what I understand is the Post's case in this matter. I think the Post is essentially limiting themselves, or limiting this case to some Facebook messages made by named Marty Riggs that are allegedly attributed to Mr. Devine, as well as a prior violation of a prior reprimand that Mr. Devine had. We're going to have 2 witnesses in the case, but I think I have a duty to my client. I don't think there's going to be anything in that 1 terabyte, but I have a duty to my client to at least access it to see what else is there. As I said, the city's attorney, who represents the police department as well, she couldn't get access to it, and I'm gonna call her today and find out what the IT person said, because I was able to access some information on the 1 terabyte hard drive, but not all of it. So that's where we are. I would suggest.
Well, what's being represented to you about the sort of in a broad category, the nature of the material that's on the terabyte?
It's 2 exhibits that are part of the report. that's led to Mr. Devine's leaving the department. So two exhibits, and it's a complete computer dump of Ms. Birchmore from her computer onto whatever drive there is. So my understanding is 1 terabyte equates to 250 2-hour movies. I don't think there's going to be anything on there based upon what I've seen so far, and based upon my knowledge of my client's claim that is going to inculcate him into anything.
Right, particularly given now that you understand the scope of the the division's case at this point, right?
Correct. And Mr. Martinez has been very forthcoming about the discovery he has. My suggestion is we do a very short.
I hate this
date,
guy.
Maybe like 2 weeks. I can reach out to the city, see what they've done with their IT person. We have a final pretrial conference, and we get a trial date if it's appropriate at that time. That's my suggestion.
Let me ask you this. Let's go away from discovery for a moment, Mr. Martinez. Are there any? And I remember the original submission when we had our initial preliminary hearing. But are there any motions that you're anticipating, any legal issues that we're going to have to address in advance of the ultimate hearing?
I believe that most of the legal issues will be whether or not Mr. Stowe and I can agree to authentication. I expect that we'll be able to do so, especially given that Mr. Stowe may have received similar materials in 2 different cases. I don't expect authentication to be an issue, but that likely most of the issues that would come up in pre-hearing would be that, I believe, would be whether or not Mr. Stowe would like a witness to, for example, authenticate the information that's on the terabyte, or the text messages or anything the Facebook messages, anything like that. I don't anticipate that pre-hearing there would be much more than that. I really do think that it would likely be authentication, and I hope that we'll be able to come to agreement on what's admissible and what's not in advance of the hearing. But again, just given the overlap between the 2 cases, I don't expect authentication to be too much of an issue.
All right. And while you have the floor, do you anticipate that what Mr. Stowe is trying to retrieve now from the city or the departments, that it's duplicative of the material that you've had and provided?
Did they?
I expect that it will be mostly the same materials. However, I don't know if it's if post records are complete. I do know that when we requested the IA materials, Stoughton gave us represented what they believe to be the entire IA record. I do also know, however, in the civil suit that there are records possibly for the Massachusetts State Police that may be incoming, and that may contain more materials than what Stoughton had even for
Look
their
at this
IA.
guy's fucking face, bro.
And Mr. Stowe, from your perspective, do you anticipate once the discovery issues are finally resolved and you've reviewed the material that there are any legal issues that need to be addressed before the hearing?
I would have a motion to eliminate regarding hearsay. The crux of the post-commission violation, the second violation, has to deal with allegations that a Facebook messages or Facebook posts by a Marty Riggs were attributed to Mr. Devine. We contend that is totem pole hearsay. I don't know if the totem pole is correct to use that term anymore, but it's duplicate. It's multiple hearsay.
Jesus, man.
And authentication would be needed for that to come into evidence. So that is definitely a live issue. My client denies that he made those postings, so that's an issue in this case. He's been adamant about that throughout.
All right.
And my understanding is that the crux of the second violation, or alleged second violation, is that this Marty Riggs person, who is a pseudonym for Mr. Devine, had these communications with Ms. Birchmore while he was on the job. That's my understanding. Is that's essentially that is their case. That these Facebook posts were Mr. Devine, and they were made while he was on the job, and that's what was inappropriate. So
Okay.
that's a big issue in the case.
All
And
right.
as far as I'm
So
sorry.
he's not
No,
even
go ahead.
denying that?
As far as the
Or
state
what?
police goes, there was a keeper of record deposition done for the state police. We did have a hearing in the interim. We were trying to get in the civil suit, we're trying to get the records from the Attorney General's office. The judge ordered the Attorney General's office to give her the records. The records, I understand, were delivered on or about the 12th of this month from the Attorney General's office, who has compiled records from the state police. And those are in camera review. They're before the judge right now for review. We have no idea what's in there. A keeper of record deposition formally done to the state police resulted in the state police saying we don't have any. And when the Attorney General's office, when we filed a motion to get the records from the AG's office, the AG said, yeah, well, we have the state police records. So the state police tells we don't have records. Attorney General's office says there are.
Of course, the
judge
state
is
police.
looking at those
Of
records and
course, the
review.
state police is
reviewing
saying
them
there's
now.
no records. Of course
Which
they
judge
are.
is that?
I don't have that in front of me. I could probably look it up.
Yeah. At one point, I remember one of our status conferences, somebody was talking about Judge Jackie Cowan, but I don't know if she's still involved in that case.
I don't know. I think they changed judges. It was originally Judge Davis.
Right, I remember that. Right.
Then it changed.
Ever since Louis C.K. got in trouble, they
That's
made
right.
him like
That was more curiosity than
practice
anything
law
else.
from
But
that little broom.
well, let me ask
closet.
you this as a practical matter. It's one thing to be waiting to be getting full access to the materials from the city. Is this issue about state police records also an obstacle to proceeding?
Well, I think I see. I'm in this predicament where I have a duty to my client to investigate information.
Sure.
So, on a practical level, from what I understand about this case, my client's denying culpability. As far as the second matter goes, I don't see it as an obstacle, but I have a duty to my client to investigate it to see if it is an obstacle or if there's something in there that might be exculpatory. I know that in the underlying case there were three, in the post has or had cases against three individuals, three officers. One of them has resolved. Those cases involve some 57,000 text messages, none of them of which involved my clients. Those 57,000 pages, I'm sorry, of text messages. I understand there are even more in the post filings in that 1 terabyte. I don't know that they involve my client. I'm sure they don't. But as I said, I still have a duty to investigate it. And if the state police has reference in their records, which they might, because they're investigating it further, I have a duty to look at that as well. I will point out that something has been a very unusual change in circumstances in the underlying not the underlying civil case, but the civil case, is that on June 18, the plaintiffs in the case claimed now that it wasn't a negligence case, that Ms. Birchmore was overcome by emotions which resulted in her committing suicide. They've now gotten a forensic expert, a Dr. Baden, who has opined that now it's not, it's a homicide.
Yeah, dude.
So at this point, I've talked to the counsel for Ms. Birchmore's estate, and I said, listen, you've got two different claims here. As a matter of law, they can't coexist. You have a negligence count and you have an intentional tort count, and there's case law that says they can't coexist in a judgment. Which is it? And curiously, he won't even tell me. He doesn't know yet. So civil litigation has been going on for a year. Plaintiff's counsel doesn't even know what direction it's going.
Well, just from seeing the public report of it,
right?
So the so-called Dr. Bot's revelations are relatively new, aren't they?
Yeah, June 18th. That's when they came to light, and then counsel
I don't like the sound
actually
of that.
gave them to the press. Plaintiff's counsel gave them to the press, which I said, well, I'm learning more about it by watching Facebook, not Facebook, by watching YouTube than I am in the case I'm
Oh,
representing
fuck
somebody in.
you, man.
Where am I getting that information from? Why am I seeing it online? And they told me one of the
You're
responses.
seeing it online because the press
we
won't
gave it
fucking
to the,
talk
to the
about it.
news. So
Here, I guess here's my concern. in
Because these
terms of this
fuckers aren't in jail yet.
post-proceeding.
That's why.
You've mentioned, in 2 weeks, hopefully by then they've conquered the IT problem with the material you're waiting for from them, from the city. And you've get a chance to review them, and that there's nothing that causes you concern that you've got to go down another road, get other material. But now I'm hearing about the material provided to the court for in-camera review by the Attorney General's office.
yes,
I'm also, if I'm correct, hearing you say that you'd be uncomfortable proceeding with it and without doing the due diligence that would include your review of that material as well, at least that which is made available after in-camera review.
yeah. Well, there's two directions we're going at in the Sill case. One is the in-camera review, and there's another keeper of record deposition that was filed by counsel for Matthew Farwell for requesting the state police records. So that's coming up, I think, next week for the production of that.
So my question is, if these things hanging out there, are you anticipating that even if you resolve the material from the city, that we're still going to be waiting?
No. I think if we get the state police records, or I just have the ability to go into the 1 terabyte, and I'll tell you the what I was fortunate about in getting the materials from Attorney Martinez was that the PDF file, for example, with the 57,000 pages of text messages, is a searchable PDF. So I can go in and put my client's name in, and I can go through 57,000 pages in a matter of minutes versus sitting down and going through 57,000 pages. And a lot of pages you do go through, but there's nothing really that comes up. There's certainly no conversations or communications by him under his name or any other reference that I've been able to find or research.
Fuck you, dude.
So I
why are people
anticipate
in my
that,
chat talking about Marty
hoping
Riggs
that's
on
part of the
Facebook Messenger?
terabyte
Then,
that I can go
dickhead.
through it, and it's not a lot of the videos we've been
fucking
seeing right
liar.
along. I think if there were videos that showed Mr. Devine in them as part of the terabyte dump, that would be something included in the state police report or in the post report. But there are
Marty
videos, many graphic videos.
I hate this guy.
It's just disturbing to watch. But I have to look at them and watch them because I have to make sure my client's face doesn't pop up in something. So I found nothing, and I've talked to other counsel that have gone through them all. As I said, there's 3 other attorneys beside myself looking at this information. We're all working together.
Thank you, Buzzing for Truth.
Sharing information as to what we found, because there's a lot to go through. And nobody's found anything that's popped up on the videos so far that has shown any faces of any individuals that are involved in this. So we're kind of all working together trying to get the discovery. But I think it's a state police issue right now. I'm sure Attorney Bratsky has been able to get access somehow to the 1 terabyte. If it's searchable, I'll be able to search it in one day. As far as the state police, that's kind of the red herring, not the red herring, but it's kind of the jump ball. But since there's been no indictments, and since there's been nothing added to the post report, to the any of the reports we've seen or the investigation materials, that I don't see it arising. But you never know. As I said, there might be something exculpatory. But in this case, we're kind of confined to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Martinez, to the Marty Riggs Facebook posts on as far as the second case goes.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Dude, he used a sock
correct.
account,
So
bro.
let me ask you this.
Why is this so hard to like?
I just, in terms of being able to make progress, it's important to both
I
sides.
see. I need to know all the
Ultimately
circumstances of this
best.
sock account.
And,
This Marty Riggs
On
thing.
the other hand, I am, as you know, sensitive to respondent's right to have his counsel review all relevant discovery in advance of the final hearing. But it occurs to me that we ought to consider, let me know if you object to this approach. Excuse me. Scheduling a final hearing date far enough out.
I feel that
to
shit,
envision
man. I feel that
that,
shit. Like,
that the discovery has resolved, that we have final conference, that we can address the few
like,
motions
yeah, I
relating
would,
to
I
disability that
feel
we
like
need
I would
to-
feed the
but at least
motherfucker
we
like
have
my
a schedule
briefcase.
and a goal so that it just doesn't languish at this point. I think.
Right.
Do you have any problem with approaching it that way?
No.
No.
So let's think about an approximate date, Lizzie. So what do we have? We're in August.
If I may ask, Mr. Devine, would you like to have any input on that matter as far as kicking it out to a final date?
No, as long as I can fit it into my book, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about a date, file day, and work back from there. How far out are we scheduling hearings at this point, Lizzie?
We had a pre-hearing conference earlier this month, and we scheduled a hearing in November for one of the other cases. So we scheduled pretty far out.
So that actually accommodates the circumstances in this case well to be doing that. So
yes,
It actually is the other officer involved in this case.
oh, is that right?
Yeah.
When is that
I
scheduled?
disagree. I'm actually offended.
November
I'm
19th.
offended at the reference because I love Martin Riggs from Lethal Weapon.
Later in the month, perhaps.
The following week, I believe, is Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I'm going to be a real softy and not schedule it for Thanksgiving.
Thank you. My
Dude,
wife thanks you.
Yeah, right.
Divine looks like a fucking overgrown version of Kramer's midget friend on Seinfeld that they were trying to act together.
Wait a second. Did you say 9th?
The 19th.
Come on,
19th,
Kramer.
I was going to say.
Yes.
Once we're doing hearings on Saturdays. Well, how about then? Since that's Thanksgiving.
Dude, I'm telling you, he looks just like him. He's a fucking spitting image, except
How
he's
about
like
the
bloated.
first or second week?
It's insane.
Of December.
Yeah, Mickey. That's his name, Mickey.
Either
That's
week
right.
should work for
Mickey-
me. If we
Mickey,
do
the
that
midget
first
from
week in December,
Seinfeld.
just again, given the holiday, I think I prefer later in the week.
Sure.
But then that second week, any day should work.
With the waddle, right?
The 11th, 12th, and 13th work for me. On the second week.
Holy fucking shit, dude. He looks just like him.
And having done that, I can't imagine that we're not going to be able to resolve any discovery issues in that lengthy a period of time. So
I agree.
And how many witnesses are we talking about overall? Do you anticipate?
I anticipate Mr. Devine, and we have 2 other witnesses.
And for the division?
I would expect at most 3 or 4. And I don't know. We may call Mr. Devine on our direct case as well. But I would not anticipate more than that, and it may be fewer if we're able to agree ahead of time on admissibility of evidence.
So let's do this. I always sort of plan for the longest possibility. So why don't we schedule it for the 11th, Lizzie, if nothing's in the way? And then if for any reason, either witness availability or length of hearing, we need to go into the 12th, we have the opportunity to do that.
Yep. And did you want to do 9:30? Is that a good start time?
It is for me, unless anybody's got a problem with that.
Oh,
no.
No.
So we'll need the so it's 9:30 on December 11th. Then working backwards to a conference date before that.
Dude, he's totally, yeah, I feel you, dude. Like, this dude is like, just makes my fucking skin crawl. I'm not even trying to lie.
So if issues arise that required time between that and the trial, I'm thinking even a again, because we've got several months now available, perhaps.
I can't fucking get over the fact that this guy looks like a fucking
That sounds good.
That should work.
like a tall version of Mickey from Seinfeld.
November 11th is a holiday. It's Veterans Day.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't
The
unsee
12th
it.
is a
Like,
holiday too. It's my birthday, so let's. I'm sure it's on your printed calendar somewhere.
It is. It just popped up.
So
he's
either the
totally
13th or
scuzzy.
14th, Lizzie, does that work?
Yeah, either of those dates work.
All right, your choice, council. Do you have a preference?
Being superstitious, I'll take the 14th.
That's fine.
But I would
And
like
also at 9:30, sorry.
Yes, yes, please.
Okay.
And then let's, I do like your idea because I don't want to be surprised and even though I'm happy that you two are staying in good communication, it's exactly what you should do. And I appreciate the fact you're doing that. But I'm out there too, so I want to make sure that that we have no surprises leading up to this. So I would think that let's do a 30-day status. So I make sure that these lingering discovery issues have been resolved, and if not, if we need to take some kind of action, that we have time to do
why
that.
did nobody speak up in regards to these Facebook posts that
September
people
20th?
in the chat were talking about?
Friday?
Actually,
Why didn't
I've got
Mizzy's
a
estate speak
conflict
up on that?
date, but the 19th would work.
And I realize it's for a reason that I'm just not understanding.
The
simply
19th
because
is the commission meeting
Yes,
for.
we do have.
I don't know all the details of this
What about
case.
the 17th?
That's fine.
Yep,
17th of September.
17th at 9:30.
Yes, that works. As for the hearing December 11th, that'll be in person downtown, I presume?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, that'll be held at the post commission office, and I'll send more details closer to that time.
Well, what
So we're
bothered
not
me,
using the civil service place anymore.
this
right?
is supposed to be a
anymore.
status
Okay.
hearing, right? That's all. So why was fucking
Um,
Louis C.K. over here in the broom closet able
All
to
right, 17th.
make
If there is a
what could be construed as
if there's an
arguments?
issue,
And the judge even
you
chiming
think
in, going, "Oh,
requires
well,
our intervention,
the pathologist,
for
he's fairly
instance,
new to
an
this,
inability
correct?"
to get some records
You know what I
because the
mean?
Superior Court is pulling them, or the AG hasn't produced them, or whatever, or IT is having problems. You know, the other material you're waiting to access. Why don't you submit something in writing first, and perhaps you'll, even if you both agreed on what to do. I just don't want to get to the point where we are addressing it and not leaving ourselves adequate time to get the material to you, to have an opportunity to review it, and unnecessarily delay the proceedings in this case. So again, if there's no issue, don't worry about it. I'll learn about it at the
Yeah,
status
this is
conference, but if
amazing
there is an
because
issue
none
that
of
you
this
think
is about
requires
Sandra. This is all about
intervention on our part.
these
to obtain
shitbags.
material, why don't you advise me in writing?
Everything seems to be catering to them.
If I may,
Yeah,
one
sure.
question. I anticipate having to have two subpoenas. Is those subpoenas a request for the commission to issue those subpoenas, or how procedurally, how do I go about getting those subpoenas for these independent witnesses we want to bring in?
How have we been doing that so far?
Councils have been issuing subpoenas. I believe it's chapter 38, section 12.
Yeah.
I believe is subpoena practice. What attorneys have been doing is having them notarized, which I believe makes them valid subpoenas under 30A. But they've been CCing both the members of the division and post-C review when they send the subpoenas.
Okay.
Check that statute.
I don't
All
know,
right, is there
man.
anything else you want to discuss today?
Nothing for the division.
I'm content.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll meet next on September 17th, and hopefully by that time you'll have received everything you want and have adequate time to review it as well. All right.
Thank you, Judge.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
All right. So September 17th. Yeah. And I got this bullshit virtual background right now because it looks like shit, but whatever. And then I'll try my neon again tomorrow and it'll work until it just doesn't work anymore. I'm just grateful for the time that I've gotten to have it. Anyway, guys, so yeah, I mean, I guess since these are just status hearings or whatever, we're not really hearing arguments, but I felt I sensed an air of an argument more or less coming from okay, I need to stop this because this is driving me crazy. I need to turn that off. Okay, there we go. I don't care that the neon doesn't work. Okay. That was driving me nuts. To think I used to use that. I used to use a green screen and I just can't anymore. It drives me fucking crazy. So even though I get now, and I'm sorry, Ms. I thank you for being here, Mizzy, by the way, as well as Suzanne Cleveland. Because I am still learning about this case as I go along. And this is I found it interesting that this dude could sit here and talk about this so-called evidence, but why didn't the person representing Sandra's estate speak up in defense? And I'm sure there's a good reason for it. I'm just not understanding it yet. That's all. Well then, if that's the case.
I think we got a super dad. Super dad. I think we got a super dad. Super dad. Super dad. Super dad. Dad, 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 dad. I think we got a super dad. I think we got a super dad.
Thank you, Phoebe Bird. Appreciate you. So I'm and oh my gosh. New side fun. Thank you, little Irish girl. I appreciate that. So man, it seemed like there was an air of argument coming from Divine's attorney. And I admit, like, what else is Divine supposed to do except just sit there, right? But I got to admit, it bothered me to sit there and watch him sit there all smug. It was pretty irritating, actually, to watch that. But it was funny to realize that he is a spitting image. Like, dude, he's just a grown like version of that one specific midget. Crazy. Like, I mean, he looks exactly like him. It's bizarre. Clever co-host chair fund. Thank you so much, Mike B from 413. And thank you for the Cash App, Sarah M. I appreciate it. So I the things that the things that were being discussed in this case, because this dude is really he's a real disgusting, he plays a disgusting role in this whole thing. And I'm going to go ahead and start reading something here. This is from the website for Sandra Birchmore. It says, Robert C. Divine, 51, then a deputy chief in Stoughton, led the department's youth program since early 2000, the Stoughton Police Explorers Program. In 2010, Robert Divine brought in former explorers Matthew Farwell and his twin brother William as guest instructors. Matt and Billy Farwell are twin brothers and former Stoughton High School students who went through the same program 12 years earlier. Both brothers were in their mid-20s and would go on to become Stoughton police officers. It was the same year Sandra Birchmore tried to join Youth Explorers Program in 2010 when she was 13, but was put on the standby list for the program. She became a member in 2011. That is when Sandra first met former police Robert C. Devine, Officer Matthew Farwell, and Officer Farwell. It goes into this, and it says that 2013, Devine began to have an affair with Tiffany Overstreet. March 10th, 2014, Deputy Police Chief Robert Devine is reading at the Stoughton Library 2014, and Deputy Police Chief Robert Devine is reading at the Stoughton Library. And we could listen to it. Do we want to do that? I mean, it's kind of gross. We can do that. Hold on.
And I said, stop. Can everyone help me with that? Stop.
It doesn't look like him at all.
Now, stop.
I don't think
told
that's
the
him.
cat, do not pick on the frog like that.
Oh, there he is.
You'll come to a place where the streets are not marked, where the windows are lighted, but mostly they're dark. A place you could sprain both your elbow and chin.
Yeah, I'm with you on that,
Do you
Sleep.
dare stay out? Do you dare go in? How much can you lose? How much can you win? And if you go in, should you go left or right? Or go right and 3/4, or maybe not quite? Or go around back and forth, in from behind?
If this isn't the grossest fucking shit like ever, is this dude sitting there using his position of authority to read to these kids as if it's some sort of comfort and some sort of, I mean, this would be a beautiful thing if the guy wasn't a shitbag. You know what I mean? That's what's so fucked up about it. Scott McGinnis, thanks, buddy. I hereby officially open the Get the Glare a Real Neon Sign fundraiser. We will vet the true neon sign producers in Tennessee to craft one who seconds the motion. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it, buddy. There's no need to do that. But thank you. So that's what's really fucked up about this. Think about that for a second. Like, you've got this guy. If this guy was on the up and up and he wasn't a total fucking shitbag, we know for a fact he was a shitbag. It's not like, oh, well, you know, allegedly. Bullshit. We know this guy was a shitbag. We know it. We know this guy abused his power, right? And we know it's of a sexual nature. We know it involves a minor. And so this dude is going to sit there reading to children, whereas it would be a beautiful gesture. If I saw footage of John O'Keefe reading to kids, I'd be like, oh my God. And it would make me so mad because I'd want justice for him that much more, you know? But seeing this guy reading to kids has the polar opposite effect. It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Simple it's not, I'm afraid you will find, for a mind maker-upper to make up his mind. You can get so confused that you'll start to race down long wiggled roads at a breaknecking pace and grind on for miles across weirdish wild space. Headed, I fear, toward a most useless place. Anybody know where it is? No?
Oh. In the town that you supposedly protect? Would that be the most useless
Waiting place. For people just waiting. Waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a
waiting for you to go to prison,
plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or a phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting for a yes or no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone's just.
All right, shut the fuck up. October of 2014 obtained restraining orders against Overstreet when he claimed that he and his wife, who is also a cop in a different town, were receiving threatening messages from Overstreet Allegedly, Overstreet sent flowers to his wife, November of 2014. Overstreet sent naked pictures of her and Divine to his coworkers and their spouses. Nice. Okay, Overstreet. Wow. December 18th, 2014, Easton police raided Overstreet's home in Easton in order to seize her computers to prove she was the one sending the naked pictures. Holy shit. Now, I don't know, dude. Like, I've never heard of that before. Never heard of a raid taking place in order to uncover the fact whether somebody was sending naked pictures to other adults and their spouses. Now, I understand kids. I understand, but I've never heard of this. And I'm not saying I don't understand it. Legally, yeah, it's an issue. Of course. You know, can't just be sending people naked pictures just willy-nilly like it's all good without asking. Can't do that shit. But I've never heard of the cops raiding a house over it. You know what I mean? That I've never heard of before. It's pretty bizarre that happened. Overstreet was taken into custody by state police and charged with 3 counts of violating harassment prevention orders that were filed against her by Divine and his wife, and was released on personal recognizance. The case has been transferred to Dedham District Court. 5 days after her arrest, Overstreet reported a break-in at her Easton apartment. When Easton police responded, they found no sign of forced entry, according to police, but her apartment was in disarray. Dresser drawers were pulled out, couch cushions were thrown on the floor. During investigation, it was discovered that Divine continued to meet up with Overstreet for sex. He claimed he was only doing so in order to save her life because she would commit suicide if he didn't continue to plow ahead. I mean, people, there are heroes and there are heroes. Robert Divine, saving lives one plow at a time. Robert Divine, saving lives one plow at a time. Thank you. Wow, this dude is unreal, bro. August 2015, Robert Divine is featured in FBI Lita Insider magazine, page 32. In 2015, Divine was paid $125,284 a year. 2015, Internal Affairs investigation was ordered by the chief to look into Divine actions. July 2015, Divine received a 60-day unpaid suspension after an internal affairs investigation found that he improperly ordered an investigation onto Overstreet using department resources and technology. Okay, so that just kind of validates. Thank you. Stoughton Chief Paul Shestani stated that adjustments have been made to the role of 42-year-old Divine, who admitted to state police that he had been involved in a several month long affair with Tiffany Overstreet, 30, from Easton, which ultimately turned sour. At the time, Divine served as the deputy or second in command in Stoughton and acts as the chief when Shestani is absent. The matter has led Shestani to take on some of Divine's work and prompted at least one police expert to question whether Divine should stay in his position. But Shestani stood by the deputy chief, saying Divine is the victim in this case and terming the situation a personal matter. February 12, 2016, Divine was demoted by town manager Michael Hartman, who announced his decision in In a brief press release, Devine reached an agreement with Hartman to return to the lowest rank within the department. Due to this decision in the case by Michael Hartman was one of the reasons Chief Shistani announced that he planned to retire in April 2016. Sarah in shock and horror gifted 10 memberships. Thank you so much, Sarah. That is amazing. I appreciate that, Sarah. You are amazing. This is fucking outrageous. This is the craziest shit ever. He believed the town manager has left him out of many department decisions. The police chief Shistani pushed for Devine's termination after he said he took a long look at the documents and reports related to the case. But Shistani said he found out an agreement was reached an hour and 25 minutes before an executive session. A custodian hand-delivered Shistani a letter written by Hartman announcing his decision. And the letter says, I wish to correct some of the misinformation that has appeared in recent news accounts concerning the police chief's resignation. The decision to resolve the print is real small here, so it's hard for me to read. I apologize. The situation involving former Deputy Chief Devine by allowing him to return to duty as a patrol officer following a lengthy unpaid suspension was a difficult one and not one that I arrived at without considering all the different points of view. To the extent that has been suggested that the decision was made without any input from the police chief is completely false. Prior to any decision being made, I held a meeting in my office with the chief and town council during which the various possible options were discussed. While the chief made very clear at that meeting what his preferred option was, I made clear to the chief that depending on what civil service rights former Deputy Chief Devine still unfolded, the chief had conversations with myself and town council, which he was updated on where things stood prior to any final agreement having been made. While the chief continued to express his disagreement, which approach I was taking, I was made aware what was happening at the time. For anyone to suggest otherwise is simply not providing the full story. The decision I made is one that I believe to be in the best interest of the town of Stoughton. While the chief expressed the disagreement with me, he also communicated as recently as 2 weeks ago that he would work with Officer Devine following his return and continue to ensure that the Stoughton Police Department continues to operate at the high level it is under Chief Shistani's leadership. It is unfortunate and disappointing that he has since decided to resign his position instead. While I would have preferred that he stayed, the chief has decided to not to do so. As town manager, I am responsible for making tough decisions that not everyone will agree with, including department heads. When making these decisions, I have to weigh the impacts that a particular decision will have on the town as a whole and not just the given department. Although it would sometimes be fulfilling my duties and responsibilities as Stoughton town manager if I did not consider all the legal, economic, and other relevant factors in making my decision. Ultimately, I must choose the one that I believe, in my professional opinion, is best for the town of Stoughton. In this case, based on all the relevant facts and circumstances, the decision I made was that I believe to be in the best interest of the town of Stoughton. I think it's like the 5th time he said that, which is ultimately the job I was hired to do. Okay. Internal investigators found Facebook messages between Birchmore and Devine, during which he asked for sex acts and discussed locations to meet. Devine communicated with Birchmore on Facebook using the alias Marty Riggs, a police officer from Lethal Weapon. Man, that pisses me off. Really like that movie and that franchise. Devine had a sexual relationship with Sandra Birchmore while he was still a member of the Explorers program, but by 2020, he was having full-fledged sexual encounters with her at various locations, including inside his Stoughton PD patrol car. Defendant Devine's relationship with Miss Birchmore appears to have been ongoing at the time of her death.
I am Stoughton Deputy Police Chief Robert Devine. Recently, the Oasis Coalition sent out a survey to Stoughton parents asking whether or not you supported the Stoughton Police Department in enforcing alcohol laws. 97% of you said that you did. 100% of you also stated that you would never serve alcohol to minors. Thank you for contributing to a healthy Stoughton, and we applaud your efforts.
You're a magnificent cunt.
Yeah. So basically, you've got this dude who is extremely, extremely shady, extremely dirty. Clearly. I mean, clearly. And no charges have been brought on this guy yet, which is amazing. Now, he's not guilty of murder, but he's definitely, he definitely groomed her. He clearly groomed her. In fact, as Sleuthy was saying, he even groomed the groomers. This is the Lex Luthor behind everything. I mean, this is what it boils down to. This is the Lex Luthor behind everything. This is the brains. This is the guy who runs the show. All right. I got a little bit of coffee left. Let me see here. All right. I'm going to take some calls. Why not? Take some calls. See what y'all got to say. Yeah, I know, Candy Cane. I'm aware. I mean, things been good to me for a few years, man. And Clubber got a hold of the cord, and it happens. What are you going to do? I'll just have to get another one. You're on. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, it's Suzanne again.
What's up, Suzanne? Thanks for
How are
calling.
you? That was awful.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I feel robbed.
yeah, I mean, what do you am I crazy, or do you feel like
Well, not for this.
maybe I'm just used to, like, maybe in my mind I'm quick to compare subconsciously whoever's representing Sandra Birchmore to have that same fire as like Jackson and Yannetti. You know what I mean? And maybe that's my fault. But you know, I didn't like that the dude got to slip that shit in there, and then the judge added his own 2 cents on, oh, that pathologist, he just saw that, right? You know, there was some opinions
Well,
that I
that's
just didn't like
strategic.
happening.
That's all strategic, and it's bullshit. And they don't have they don't have the crossover with the civil case.
Okay.
So it's not the same. You know, their process is is limited. So the is it Marullo? He doesn't have a horse in this race, so to speak. So that's why you're not seeing his intervention in that hearing, because he can't.
Okay.
You know, they're just playing game. They're playing games with that fact, as you can probably well tell. Is that it's their own little, you know, secret room where they get to pretend that stuff doesn't exist, or that he's not Marty Riggs. I mean, that stuff has all been authenticated before. He's full of shit.
It's already been authenticated, right?
Yeah, it's been authenticated.
So
I mean,
can they?
there are people, there are other kids.
And they're willing to like subpoena anybody who can verify that it's been authenticated and prove that it's been authenticated easily, right? I mean, if it's been authenticated, then there's got to be receipts of it. And people, you know, if somebody who actually authenticated it, you know, if it falls into that category, they must be willing to testify, right?
Well, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of backdoor stuff going on as far as intimidating. There were people who came forward before that got, you know, the hammer down on them, and kind of, there was a point in the investigation where Stoughton says that they were looking into potential witness investigation.
Thank you, Lynn.
In regards to folks who were arguing online, or, you know, making claims that the Stoughton police were intimidating them. They said they looked into it, and guess what? They didn't find anything when they looked into it.
Wow.
I'm sure that's shocking. I mean, you know, we looked into ourselves, and it turns out ourselves are still okay.
Right. Oh my God, this is so crazy. It's so cringe to watch.
And it should have, at this point, it's been months and months already, it should have been that they were talking about the material, as opposed to, well, we can't really get the material. I mean, he's kind of, I don't think bluffing's the right word. He's referring to other material that maybe they don't even need, or it might be duplicative, just as a stall tactic.
Right, they're just wasting
That's all
time.
it is.
Yeah, they're just wasting time. That's what it seems like.
Well, they're wasting my time. They're wasting your time. They're wasting the people's time. It's out of control. But what I wanted to say is, I thought you were going to read the entire actual internal report with the Overstreet debacle, which we really shouldn't say her name. That poor woman's been through
No,
enough.
I'm gonna do all that. Yeah, like I think coming up early this week, I'll be going over some of those documents and some of the timeline in this situation, and really start to kind of deep dive into it.
Well, I just got more of those documents in reference to that previous, you know, court case and internal investigation. I just got more of those. So if you want to catch up on those, we could do a whole thing just on that story.
Wow.
Is that it reveals a lot of the tricks that he used, or what he's had up his sleeve, as far as pretending that the tech isn't real and isn't authenticated. I mean, he was an expert in that. Excuse me, he was an expert in that as well.
That's so crazy that he, like, I'm still
faking the tech, you know.
I'm not even over the fact that he weaponized resources in order to fight with a mistress, basically. That's insane. Like,
yeah, it is insane.
And like, how are we supposed to?
Just as he became a lawyer, to protect himself. Now he became the go-to tech expert at the police station, so that he knew how to mimic tech and basically manufactured the harassment case, the messages and the sending of the email to everyone. That originated with Divine.
Wow.
He's the one who sent it out. He sent it out as her, using bogus VPNs.
Oh, dude, that's fucking crazy. Like, this dude,
I know, and there were probably eight police involved with investigating it. Do you know what a colossal waste of time that is?
Yeah, this is a straight up fucking calculated predator. This is crazy.
Yep. Yep. And then had the audacity to make fun of this poor woman's mugshot because she looks really frazzled in it. I mean, who wouldn't look frazzled if your weirdo ex has you thrown in jail for messages that you didn't even send?
Right. I'm shocked. Shocked.
There's no bottom low enough for this guy.
Clearly. I mean, yeah, like the dude just sitting there gave me the willies, you know? Just fucking sitting
Same.
there. You know? It like you know how you could just sense that kind of shit on people? You know?
Yeah, well, we talked about the whole supervillain thing, and Lex Luthor. He's the primordial ooze on top of that.
Right. This dude is like the real deal fucking villain, man.
Well, if anybody on here, I don't know if we got Stoughton and Canton peeps in the chat, but if anybody on here actually has any, back in the day knowledge or, anecdotal information about what was back in the Explorer program or some of his antics, please feel free to hit up Mizzy or myself to talk further about it, because we're trying to piece together some history that is not looking good for this guy who's sitting there so smug, like everything is fine.
Yeah, there's got to be a guy like that, man. There's got to be misconduct peppered all over this guy's fucking history. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a question of people talking about it, you know? But
and other cops did talk about it, by the way. Other cops did confront him, and they would get, given the janitor closet treatment with the gun butted up against them type. I mean, it's really ugly stuff. It's in these guys. The drama going on in that station has been well known for years. But even in the context of all of this, where there's this sort of infighting, these guys would literally have meltdowns and come to blows during roll call in the lobby of the station, and the chief would have to come in and break it up like something out of a movie.
Over what?
And this is all in recent tensions mounting over whose internal investigation is going to show what, or who's been in the back office being a rat. A lot of it has to do with him.
Wow.
A lot of people, and I don't think anybody, well, it doesn't matter what I think, but it doesn't seem like anybody was protecting him because they were his buddy, or they, or they're just, a cop's cop. It's because he was threatening, and because he used, he would threaten to out people, or he would do shady things like, show up and harass their significant others. I mean, there's no depth,
man. He's like
that this guy would give to. So it wouldn't have been worth anybody going into the office and saying, hey, he's up to something, you should pull him aside and talk to him, because they would get hurt, like literally hurt.
It's fucking crazy.
And he doesn't look like much. But he sure does if he's got video or pictures of somebody doing something questionable on duty.
You ever watch, what is it? A City on a Hill? I think that's what it's called.
Yep.
The one with Kevin Bacon. He's like Kevin Bacon, except Kevin Bacon wasn't the shitbag that this guy is. You know what I mean? But
Kevin Bacon was doing some other work. He was doing actual work too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like Kevin Bacon, he's like kind of an anti-hero, more or less, kind of like Woody Harrelson in Rampart, like
such a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that vibe that very capable of being super manipulative, making things happen that are totally not okay. But at the same time, the difference is like these guys that I'm comparing him to in these movies, they didn't do the dirty shit that this guy does. They didn't groom kids. They didn't groom officers to groom kids. You know what I mean? This is next level. And to go through the things that he's going through in order to protect himself is diabolical.
Well, no, they might not have
Like,
done that.
he's
but,
like a Terminator.
But Whitey Bulger did.
That's fucking crazy.
You know, that's the lesser known part of the Whitey Bulger backstory is all the predatorial, things that he did with women and children. And I think this police gang town or Copland, so to speak, is way more like Whitey Bulger than it is like City on the Hill.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And who knows why? I mean, there's definitely stories within the internal reports where you can tell there's infighting with these guys, and there's one that I hate to say it, but died by taking his own life, and it was right after this internal report about Sandra dropped. So,
dude,
it could
even
be that he
Michael
was getting closer.
Sorry, even Michael Chiklis
Oh,
wasn't as bad as this guy in The Shield, but I watched that whole series. During COVID,
I watched it twice.
I binge watched the whole goddamn series because I'd never done it before. And it was, yeah. But I don't think that this dude is that's the thing, is this guy, when it comes to kids and what this guy's done, these TV characters that we're comparing him to, and I get what you're saying, that's a good example in the same sense as the other examples, because they'll do all this crazy diabolical shit to protect themselves, but what they're protecting themselves from is like a bad shooting, not grooming
and it's
children.
about drugs, drugs and hookers and
Right.
running guns.
Yeah,
and stuff
vice
like that.
shit.
But they had
Yeah.
at least they had a limit. They had
Right.
a limit.
Yeah, like there was, I mean, maybe it was because the viewers weren't ready for it at the time, but that's not the case with City on a Hill.
I don't know, man. This whole thing should be a mini series in and of itself.
I'm sure it will be at some point. I mean, again, like just with everything involving this case and the John O'Keefe Karen Reed case and the Turtle Boy case, I mean, there's you can't properly tell one story without all three. You really can't.
No, we're all one big dysfunctional family now.
You can't do it accurately. There's too many connections.
And the same players and the same troopers that are out either doing the fake bus or doing the fake investigative interviews.
Right. And you've got one base, one home base, one common denominator in all of this, and that is District Attorney Michael Morrissey.
Oh yeah, you know what? I've got some new information on his connection with this case too. I'm going to look at that later. There's stuff there are things that are starting to fall. Their dominoes are starting to fall. But every time I say those words, everyone's been saying that forever in the Karen Reed case. I don't think any of us can rest until we see some proverbial heads rolling. Like
Right.
This is nuts. The sitting and the waiting, and then them saying November. And P.S. I can't stand it when they do their little chuckle fest over the holiday and my birthday is a holiday. You guys are just yuck. Get over yourself.
I mean, come on, like at least have some consideration for the memory of this woman. Like the evidence is there. Yeah, at least have some respect. Like you don't have to address the issues that everybody is online talking about. Nobody's asking you to do that, but we know that you're familiar with the shit. Everybody's sitting there on that fucking Zoom call. We know that you're familiar with everything. Have some respect for her memory, at least, please.
And they kept saying, his lawyer kept saying over and over that there's no, and this is part of strategy, saying that there's nothing indicating that it's his client in any of the videos or the pictures because his face isn't in them.
Right.
None of us are prudes here, so we know what those pictures and videos look like. You know what else can be authenticated besides his stupid fat face? I'm just saying, he can be identified. It's been part of the discovery. People know what others. And let's not even say the body parts. Just say somebody from the neck down. People can authenticate that.
Yeah.
So they're just, they keep saying his face isn't in them, his face isn't in them. Well, they typically aren't in videos like that. But someone can name, you know, who it is in the picture. But they say things like they say things like that just so that we'll be like, oh, well, it must not be him. Maybe it's another guy. It's him.
I mean, yeah. Like,
Nothing to see here. That's a standard operating procedure with a DA. Anything under DA's domain is you think you see it, but no, you don't.
right.
You know?
Right.
Because we're all stupid. All tens of thousands of us are stupid, and we don't understand how the law works.
It's fucking wild, man. Like, with all these eyes.
Doesn't it make you mad that they think we're so
Sure.
stupid?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm mad for the locals there mostly because they're the ones who have to live under that fucking umbrella of, you know, just corruption and you know, you're not seeing what you think you're seeing. Just, you know, moving on.
It's the big loot. Well,
Next,
yeah. So
next business.
So Tiffany's not, and just as part of that whole story, which I hope we do get to touch on more. She doesn't even live around there anymore because she had to completely change her life to get away from, you know, the fallout from that case, and how he and his wife didn't get in more trouble is that's part of the problem. They, you know, once they got through that, because they did a lot of shady things during that case, they got through that.
I can't believe they even let. Because think about it. I mean, it's fair to say that had they dealt with that situation properly, then Sandra Birchmore might still be alive. You know?
Exactly. That's why I brought up that story before to you guys, because this is where it started. I mean, it started way before that. I mean, he was probably born evil, but that's neither here nor there. But that story, it happening, it built another layer of confidence and cockiness where you're untouchable.
That's fucking crazy.
And you've been like kind of collecting dirt on people so that if they come in and say, hey, we saw what you were doing, you know, at the party with the kids, and we think you're being shady, then he pulls out a file or some kind of damning information and says, are you sure about that? You know, are you sure you saw what you saw? Because there have been a couple of little blips of stories coming up with people where they start to sort of tell their story, and then you never hear from them again.
Jesus.
Or we could hope that they're sitting down with an actual, much more powerful enforcement agency, and that's fair. If it's private that way, then that's cool. But something has to happen. These stories have to come out because they're minimizing Sandra's, that's already disgusting. But in minimizing her story, they're trying to have the other probably dozens, you know, just disappear and get snuffed out. Because if there's no Sandra story, well, then no one else can come forward.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah, and I mean, all this time that's being dragged out, somebody could
These
be
guys are
building
just
confidence
out there.
or
We're not talking about just like, okay, well, they need to not be on duty. We're talking about predators here. Like, they're doing God knows what on their free time to God knows who. You know what I mean? Like, they're just walking around. That's fucking crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is part of the end game here, is to get them on a registry where it's known that, you know, people to stay away from. I mean, we know it, but they're hide in plain sight kind of guys. I mean, there's nothing remarkable about how anybody looks. And, you know, William is in a whole other aspect.
I mean, I don't know. Divine looks like a spitting image of like a grown version of Mickey from Seinfeld. I can't get over that, man.
Yeah, and you know what?
He looks
I actually
like
love.
him.
I love Louis C.K. and I'm so bummed out that my hero is that lawyer.
Yeah, man. I still love Louis C.K., man. You know, like, I still love
I mean,
him.
he got in some trouble. He has to have a side hustle to, you know, pay back for his lawsuit.
Right.
Nobody's perfect, but he's
Yeah.
still funny. And that guy's not funny at all.
I don't condone just fucking, you know, going at yourself right there just without somebody's consent. I don't condone that at all, but the guy's still funny. He should still be allowed to be funny. You know, that's how he
He's
fucking
so
earns a
funny.
living.
And at least at least it was adult, grown-ass women. I mean, these guys were ruining the lives of girls, didn't even get a chance to be women. Everybody's got this false conception that this concept that Sandra was, 23 and she was able to do her own thing and live as an adult. No, that's not true at all, because her development and her ability to grow was thwarted by all three of their abuse.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing in this nightmare story is a 15-year-old girl who is stuck there trying to look like a grown woman who could live her life and have a baby on her own.
Right. That's absolutely what happens to victims, is they get stuck in that mode. The abuse keeps them there mentally. And
so of the other girls, and maybe even some boys from the group, I mean, they haven't really been able to reach the level of coming to terms with their truth, because you just don't. I mean, I know that's a weird way to say it, but you just don't. You just kind of eke your way through life until something, knocks that trauma loose. And as long as these guys are stalling and lying and creeping back into dark corners, then no one's going to be able to come forward. I say we smoke them out. I guess that's the point of talking about it as we are, is that they got to be a little bit on the ropes.
Right. I mean, the only way to really do that is to keep it right. Yeah, just to keep it very, it's working to some degree when his attorney felt the need to slip it in there. I hear more about this on YouTube than I do. Okay, well, get used to it, homie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that awkward?
Right.
Is that awkward that your client has been a creep for 20 years that we know about?
Right. Like you're trying to make it seem like there's no credibility to the allegations, but there are. It's just a question of more and more people becoming aware of it, and that's clearly what scares them, is or else they wouldn't have brought it up.
Yeah, well, I hope other people were watching this, because they only named a few witnesses about corroborating the whole Facebook Messenger thing, and they better be really big witnesses, because there's way more people who talk to him online in that format. I mean, the Martin Riggs thing, that was an offshoot of the internal usage of Facebook and Twitter to engage with the community. So the origin of that account is probably right there in the police station.
Wow.
That was the thing with that is a big part of it that they're trying to squash, is that it couldn't have been, because this was just him, his account was only the police one. Well, they'd have to get through a few layers of subpoenas to make that actually real, because he had a lot of protection. Keep in mind, this guy had
but I mean, what are the chances of that? That they'll be able to pull that off.
Well, but this actually, the pressure of this case actually does. The more discovery there is, the more pressure there is for the third-party vendors and the tech and the IT people to say, yeah, we got it. We found the origin, and it's this VPN address, which was attempted to be, scrambled or whatever, you call it, by Divine himself, because it comes from his work computer.
Jesus. I mean, I hope they can do it.
But as far as the chat, there are other people who definitely chatted with him under that, and maybe they could even corroborate that's exactly how he talks. How people have a particular text language. When I text, it's actually it definitely comes across the same way that I talk. So I bet people have authenticated it, and they're just bluffing that it's not him. I mean, I know they're bluffing that it's not him.
Yeah, I don't use abbreviations very often at all. Like, I'm very, and I'm big on grammar. But yeah, some people aren't. Some people have their little, and they also have some people even have little emojis that they constantly use, that they consider to be their signature emoji. Hopefully people come forward, man. Hopefully people come forward.
I bet you he has. I'm going to give you one little thing that, as we look at these other Explorer cases that will stand out to you as kind of a trademark thing, is that these guys, these creeps, these predators, they usually have some type of nickname or reference to either an act or something intimate that they use often. One of them had a nickname for his parts. And that even the other cops know it because they hear them talk, on the phone, or they hear, or they.
I mean,
or they say it just because
that's
they're
not
idiots.
uncommon. That's not uncommon.
It's not no, it's not uncommon.
But it helps.
But it's
if
relevant when
right,
you're talking about abusing people.
It's evidence if the dude is using it in, you know what I mean? If he's talking about it in one situation, and then you catch him doing it while he's committing a crime, and he's using his euphemism for his privates, his alias. Then
his alias for his it's so gross. These people, man, grow up. And also he had locations that were specific to him. There's a restaurant where he would say that he was meeting girls and or women to sit down and have a talk with them because they were in trouble. And this restaurant was where he'd go in the parking lot in a squad car and do what. He wasn't meeting to have a pep talk or a come to Jesus moment. I'd love to go talk to the staff there because he had a what do you call a rally point, something like that, and it was one of them, and he got in trouble for leaving work to go hang out at this restaurant.
Wow.
So how do they not have that information? You can literally tag him as going into the back of the parking lot at the same time as, say, another girl, or picking them up in his squad car and being there with them.
Jesus, man. Like, I shudder to think how many victims there probably are.
Hopefully we find that out. I mean, and part of what Mizzy and I have been looking into is the Explorer records and the fact that he was holding them. I wonder if they're intact.
Yeah.
Because he said, in his own words, I'm working on a little project of Divine's own words. So brace yourself for that. Because there's a lot. This guy talked a lot. We saw how pompous he was even on screen. And he said that the amount of explorers that he's had go through his program, whose young lives he has shaped,
Wow.
so to speak, is 300.
Jesus.
And he had you have to keep files on all of them. I don't think he did it up to spec or up to policy because he was violating policy the whole time. But that's where they came to find the two letters that he had in his jacket. One was from, telling him how amazing he was. One was from Sandra's mother before she passed away. And the other one was, I think, from a young girl who was basically writing him a love letter.
Oh my God.
So those are the two things in his Explorer boss, employee profile, if you will, is the letter from Sandra's mother thanking him for all the hard work he does in taking care of her daughter. The other one was a 13-year-old girl who had a crush on him and wrote like a my hero letter to him, and there's no signature on it, which the chief makes well known to everybody. We don't know who that was.
Wow.
But that person's out there, and we'll probably, if she were to look at it, she'd say, yeah, that was me. That was my dumbass writing to this creep.
Right.
Because I was a delusional 13-year-old girl who didn't know any better.
Right.
But they can figure that out. They're hesitant. They're hesitant to figure it out because every layer gets gross, more and more gross and more overwhelming. And then some of these guys
does.
piece together.
It's more. It's insane.
It is insane. And that today was a little bit of a letdown because I figured they had their hands on most of that stuff. And I don't know what Stowe, his lawyer, was talking about in terms of IT through the town. I think that involves maybe just security video and location data.
I mean, we'll
and
find
it's a
out.
lot because
We'll find out on the 17th.
It's a lot of data.
Yeah, we'll find out on the 17th. But again, yeah, just continuance after continuance. Oh, okay, we'll set a date for this, and then they set a date in order to set another date. It's what's been going on with Turtle Boy's case. It's one thing after the other. It's the same thing. So I mean, then that's part of the lawyer strategy is just to stall. So I think
Well, that's why the other case is important. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, because you'll see that it's maybe 9 months of games going on with the mistress and the false harassment case.
9
Think about how
months.
the time and the resources to go through an entirely manufactured harassment case such that he did.
Jesus, dude.
And it ended up getting dropped because everybody was going to lose, and the only person that really lost was poor Tiffany. I mean, she had to reinvent her life, change her name, move away, lost her job.
God damn.
Because he and his wife did not. They just wanted to take her down because it was inconvenient. That once he wanted to stop sleeping with her, I guess it became inconvenient for everybody. But she didn't do. I mean, people still talk about it as though this woman went crazy and engaged in all this behavior, and I don't think they ever were able to find out.
I mean, did she have a history of anything like that?
No. I mean, of course she had some. I mean, we're all nuts, right? I mean, everybody's got something. I'm sure she had a bad boyfriend scenario. I mean, I don't know her whole backstory, but there was nothing remarkable that said that she was a repeat offender or that she was somebody that made false claims. Nothing like that.
No
Could have
bunch
had-
of police reports out there that are claiming that she
No, but she could have
ran down
been
the
one of
street
those
with her
cases.
pants off and was trying to
No,
pick up.
no, nothing like that at all. The mug shot that everybody put out there to show everyone how it was on purpose, to show everyone how crazy she looked. It's the same one as, you remember the one that they take of Karen when she's in Stoughton lockup with her COVID mask on and her stringy, like hasn't slept in 2 days hair?
Yeah.
They do this on purpose because what would you think somebody would look like when their whole life is swirling down the drain?
Sure.
I mean, that's not at all the reality. That's just somebody having a super bad day who is
All it
terrified
takes
in
is
front of
just
a panel of cameras.
All it takes is just, I mean, you capture one, fraction of a moment with a camera, and that could catch somebody doing mid something and then could be construed as, look at the look on their face, and all that stuff is going to be manipulated in order to make someone either look more innocent or more guilty,
Yep. And yet and by contrast with that, we have dozens
or
upon dozens
more or less credible
of pictures of him. Well, we've got dozens and dozens of pictures of him stepping up in front of the camera, talking about how awesome he is in the Oasis program. So we get to look at his smug, fat face 100 times the way that he wants us to see it.
Right.
But somebody who is his enemy or against him, or he's got to play out that narrative. I mean, don't think for a second that he's not going to try and make poor Sandra look ugly and messy and
of
crazy
course
and bad too.
Of course, that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to make her look like she was like, not only their only chance is to discredit her, make her look as though she's not just the furthest thing from a victim possible is in their best interest. So they're going to make it seem as though she was more than willing and she facilitated most of it. And they only have so much power over a woman's, hypnosis,
oh, well, good luck with that. Good luck with portraying that.
Totally what they're going to do. Yeah, they're totally going to try to do that. What
good
else?
luck
I mean,
with doing that with a 15-year-old, and good luck with doing that with a no longer alive girl.
Yeah, where dude was just in her apartment, like he's on video. He admits it's him. It's this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up now. Thanks for calling in, Suzanne. I love.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
Thank you for your insight. I'm very grateful for it. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
All right. You too. Bye, Suzanne. Suzanne Cleveland, y'all. Suzanne Cleveland, y'all. Oh, I'm late with it. Here we go. All right, guys. Yeah. Next date in regards to Mr. Divine is September 17th. So of course we'll be live for that. And anything in between, we're gonna go live and discuss it. Because I am just more and more fascinated by this case. Every little bit that goes by, every bit that I become aware of. But guys, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you guys hanging out. You guys are awesome. I love you guys very much, and we will do this again very soon, my friends.